I don't tell this story much because it was violent, brutal, and locked in a room where you know this was going to murder you right now.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Redemus Maximus.
This is Jay Lovecraft.
This is the Wolfman.
And we've got two special guests on today, starting with our editor,
RAS Photography.
Adam Bomb.
and...
Lilypad.
All right. Yes, and welcome, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. You guys actually joined us with a special moment today. So we're actually going to be talking about a couple things that have not necessarily special, but something that we've all experienced, right?
Oh, yes.
So obviously this is the first episode of October.
Yeah.
We've got a lot coming for this month, especially going forward. Basically, we're going to be doing a lot of different like holiday type episodes, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've got Spooktober. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. We've got the holidays and Christmas and everything else, right? To finish up the year. So look forward to a lot of those different episodes. And going back to Spooktober, first episode, this one is actually going to be about the Exorcist movie, real life exorcisms, and paranormal investigations and the paranormal.
Here we go, folks. Buckle up your seatbelts. Get ready.
Yes.
That's Salt Life.
Yes. That's all life. That's perfect. So, beginning this with, like I said, we all at this table actually went and saw The Exorcist the Beginning, or The
Yes.
Believer. Sorry, Exorcist the Believer today. And we're going to actually start with Jay Lovecraft. Kind of give us a synopsis of what you felt like that movie was.
Here we go. Where
exactly.
shall I begin? Get cozy, kids, because you're in for a white knuckle ride of bullshit.
Yes.
But anyway.
So give us a breakdown. What did you think of the movie first and foremost? Before we before we hit the spoilers and everything else, like what did you think personally of the movie?
Okay. Personally, I think it's a morality tale-ish. For those who want to delve deeper into the occult, please, if you ever do such a thing, find an actual practicing, experienced person who can guide you through these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just grab it and act like you're some damn expert. Find an experienced practitioner. Hell, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Go through 8 bits and dice rolls. Call up the email. Get me, and I'll help you out.
That's 8bits and dice rolls podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, because it's a morality tale. It involved 2 kids that didn't need to suffer through a whole mountain of bullshit. That's all I'm gonna say. So, moving on.
Wolfman, what did you think of it?
I believe the movie was aggressively okay.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, that's a good review. It's very aggressively okay.
Maybe even mid is another word to use for it.
As the kids say, no cap.
As the kids say. Because what the story was decent enough.
It was kind of mediocre, right? So I went into the movie thinking that it was going to be what was it? They advertised it as the prequel to the original Exorcist, at least from the first trailer.
But to be honest with you, I'm going to stop you on that. After watching it, it wasn't.
Clearly not. It looks like it was like a couple years after.
Try like
It was like decades.
Exorcist or
decades
1 or 2.
after.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, like you feel like it's okay, right? It had a couple jump scares.
What jump scares? It didn't even move me.
Well, it got us.
Yeah, it got us. A fairly predictable kind of story. Weird pacing issues, I felt. Like,
Absolutely.
really decided to take its time with certain things, but other things it's like, all right, check off the list, get going, possess kids, self-harm, just check off all the lists for the routine possessions.
Antichrist, symbol, yada, 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 right?
Yeah, it was kind of pretty much, in my opinion, schlock Satanism.
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, we'll go more into detail of like why, right? So, Lilypad, you joined us on this one.
Yay.
So I thought that the story was, kind of, again, aggressively okay, but also it took me out of the actual story when I saw the actors and knowing who they were. Like, The mom from Sugarland. I mean, I couldn't help it but just think of you and me, baby. You're stuck like glue.
Which mom were you talking about?
The mama, the Christian mama.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So I haven't seen that show.
Oh no, she's a singer. And she's also so how my mind works. When I see faces, I associate them with other things, and I just associate her with comedy and happiness and country.
Okay, so the complete opposite.
Yeah. So when she started
Weird.
doing her stuff, I couldn't help but just kind of be humorous about it. So, and I feel like there was a lot of different typecasting in the faces that I saw. So, but again, the story by itself was spreading pretty thin with me.
Okay, fair enough. So, Mr. RES, you obviously have not seen the movie. Did you have any interest in actually seeing it?
So at first, I actually had interest in seeing it. The director or the producer, Adam Green, I actually liked the Halloween movies that he did. A lot of people didn't like them.
No, I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, I thought they were great. So when I read the reviews,
just excellent.
Yeah, and I was just a little surprised by the reviews. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I was just a little surprised. But I love horror films in general, so I take a lot of things with a grain of salt because a lot of horror films in general get bad reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you watch it as a horror fan, and it turns out to be pretty good. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's why we have like Horror Hound and all those other things, right? So
Yeah,
you actually
exactly.
get to enjoy the behind the scene of those kind of movies and stuff. Because there's a lot that goes into horror movies that a lot of people don't really think about, right? So I don't know if you guys have been to a Horror Hound or whatever. There's a lot of really good panels.
just ask Shelley Duvall.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. Man, and dude, she is a saint. Like in the
that woman has just patience of that
well,
saint.
patience, but I mean, like she went through how much shit during,
good Lord.
during The Shining, right?
A ton.
And she still is.
And she,
But yeah, and she's actually doing another movie.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. So it's a slight shout out. So there actually is a really popular kind of like horror mystery, like adventure channel. The name is escaping me, but like they go through like these different like horror places. They've gone to haunted places and tells you about the history of things. They did a really good interview with Shelley Duvall, and they were talking about her newest movie, and it looks really good.
Was that the interview where she was in her car?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
I actually watched the same exact one, and I loved it. I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah.
Everybody tried to paint her as this crazy lunatic.
Well, no, it was because of who's the director of The Shining?
Oh, he's dead now. What's his name? He did a lot of good movies, though. Kubrick.
Yes,
Stanley Kubrick. Yes, that's right.
I love Stanley Kubrick, especially from his epic works, 2001: A Space Odyssey, starting there.
Oh yeah, that's weird to think about too.
For me, that was just genius.
His vision is one of the best. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately,
Full
we're not
Metal
going to get
Jacket.
that as much now. But yeah.
And Star Queen is here in the studio. She just didn't have a chance to actually sit in front of the mic today just because she didn't go see the movie.
Star Queen.
Yeah, she said actually Believer is the first movie in a new trilogy too.
Oh.
So since we're kind of talking about like reboots of stuff.
I do want to say that I remember reading one interview or review about it, and they were talking about how it is going to be the trilogy, and this is the start. And since the reviews were not as good,
Did we miss an after credit scene?
Should
we have sat around?
I didn't think about that.
oh,
I knew
you
that
always
because-
wait for an after credit.
because
Yeah,
I
I
was
know.
telling Lilypad here that okay, we should stay for the credits, but then all of a sudden we just all chose to leave.
Well, it was that bad. We wanted to
know.
leave.
Those kind of things, I don't know if I've just gotten to the point where it's like you can kind of figure out if there's going to be one or not, right? So horror, I don't typically associate like end credit scenes. Now knowing that there's going to be a trilogy of this shit, obviously there's going to be something.
Oh, I know, but I'm gonna be frank when I say this. I'm not interested in the rest of the two others.
I don't think I am either at this point.
I mean,
I do have to say, the girls.
Oh, they did an excellent
I know.
job.
The
they were
girls
superb.
scared the ever living shit out of me.
Yeah.
And kudos to them. Did anyone get the thought with the Christian girl? I forget her name, Catherine.
Yes.
Did anyone get the vibe that she looked kind of like
She looked
Reagan.
like Reagan.
Yeah.
At certain
Yes.
points, she did look like
I kind of was
Reagan.
hoping that there was some type of, and the dad was so sketchy. Like I wanted to know
absolutely.
if there was like some type of like.
He's in it for himself and not for the saving of the two daughters.
Honestly, I thought that was going to play into the whole, there could have been some mischievous.
Yeah,
thing,
because he
right?
was so sketchy. I even told. I was just like, dude, he's got something. Like there was a reason why these girls got taken.
Possessed.
Yeah, got possessed and
Yeah,
just.
this is why I said this is a morality tale. You do not go into the occult blindfolded.
Yes.
Have an experienced practitioner with you. Anyway,
Yeah. And so watch it at your own risk, I guess. It wasn't a terrible movie, but it wasn't like the best horror movie.
Lots of red herrings, I
Yeah,
feel like.
absolutely.
A
But-
lot of red herrings. Sorry.
but anyway, I mean, getting into the crux of the whole thing theologically, and I gotta
Yes.
say this.
Yeah. So there's a big reason why we went and saw this movie. And the main thing is because of the main part of this episode, right? So
Yeah.
J. Lovecraft actually has a background in Exorcist and the Rite.
Okay, a long time ago, picture this, early 1990-ish. I was just the kid holding the book. Now picture this. You get a phone call from someone. You don't know who this person is. Could be somebody from your local church, could be somebody down the street, someone across the country. You don't know, right?
Yep.
Long story. We get a phone call. Gets to the archdiocese. Exorcism. Approved by the archbishop. Now, picture me, short-haired, trying to be a little bookish know-it-all about all things Catholic, right? Well, guess what? I got to hold the book during the rite of the exorcism.
Yeah. And what was that like?
Okay, this is where it gets intense. You're walking into a dark room. Yes, it sounds cliche, but it's worse than that. It's so pitch black, the nebulousness of the darkness feels like fabric around you. It was that intense. It was that real. You could just cut it with a knife. And that was only part one. Part two was the cold. By all rights, this was middle of the summer, 85, 95 degrees. If anything, I walk into a slaughterhouse freezing cold. Here's part three. The smell. Science will tell you that when approaching the cold, your olfactory senses in your nose and in your brain shuts down. You don't smell anything in the cold. You can smell everything. It smelled like wretched death, vomit, shit, the works. I was young then. There was EMTs and there was police officers everywhere. All of them practicing Roman Catholics. All of them had the sacrament of reconciliation and went through Mass before this. And I was the kid holding the book. The entire exorcism lasted 24 straight hours. And to be frank with you, it was the most violent episode of my life. I don't tell this story much because it was violent, brutal, and locked in a room where you know this was going to murder you right now. 2 weeks later, I received a message. Oh, you've been selected to join the Papal College for Exorcisms in Rome. Now, having gone through this, I was like, okay, I'm chosen to be God's soldier on earth.
And that was something they kind of talked about in the movie, right? About the nun, or was going to be the nun.
Yeah.
So you were in that phase.
Yeah, because this really hit a lot of nerves with me. But what's interesting to note, you have to be solid in not only your Catholic upbringing, but also you must be free from all forms of mental illness. Well, hindsight being 2020, I was diagnosed with all these mental infirmities, anxiety, depression, nervousness, the whole bit. And I was released from all my vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So, guess where I went to? Back to mom and dad. I never tell this story, simply because it was a big part of me. The church was a big part of me.
It was a traumatic time, right? I mean, you're being told that, hey, these certain things have to happen in your life.
Yep. But you know what? Hindsight for 2020, it gave me a new focus, simply because of the fact I come to realize wearing a cassock, wearing a priest collar, doesn't make you less of God's instrument, because I already am.
There you go. Perfect.
And I just want to say, you can't see what's going on right now, but John talking about this
That's very traumatic.
brings up a lot of pain for him.
Yeah, it's a one of those things where, you know, when you're in tune with the energy, you're in tune with the atmosphere, you're in tune with whatever version of your religion is, right? There are certain feelings and things that you get, and this is one of those things, right? So we did an episode on Patreon about suicide awareness and mental health and all those kind of things. This is also one of those things where it's very powerful. It can do a toll on you and do those kind of things, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's very, very powerful. I mean, even if you're just agnostic or whatever you believe in the world, it's okay. You know, first and foremost, it's your belief. You can do whatever you want. We don't have exactly any type of like affiliation. Some of us believe in different things. Some of us practice different things, right?
Yep.
It's all part of the community.
Because Mahatma Gandhi said it best, I believe this to be very, very true. It's not the devil without, it's the devil within all of us we must be wary of.
So what I'm kind of getting at is, did you have more personal connection
yeah.
with Paula's character then? Because...
I felt a more connection with the priest.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay. I kind of see that. The way that you described...
And it's like, I'm the Father Karras, I am the Father whoever. I identify with that so much because I wanted to be them.
Right. And as part of kind of a spoiler for the movie, right? So there's a Catholic priest that has been summoned essentially by the people to do an exorcism. If you've seen the original Exorcism, there was a whole thing about how they had to go through the Vatican. They had to get the right, permissions and all the other stuff in order to do it. In this movie, the church treats these kids as premature adolescents, right? So they treat them as this is them changing of the age. They're growing up, sometimes in, I guess, like necessarily a theological point of view, but like a psychological point of view. There's a certain point where, when you hit your teenage age and you don't want to talk to your parents, you don't want to talk to certain people and all those kind of things because you just feel like the weight of the world's on you. Everybody goes through it, right? We're all kids at some point, transitioning into teens, having your own feelings and all those kind of things. So the church was treating it like that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
The church's idea, and, Lovecraft will go into the detail about this, about the East versus the West type thing. But the traditional one, at least from what I've seen, is the church has to diagnose if it's going to be a psychiatric issue or it is an actual paranormal existential crisis type deal before they do anything. This movie touched on that.
I do want to say, the way that you were explaining that, also when the church was being depicted in this movie, it was a bunch of white males that were that were saying that these adolescent girls were going through puberty. And so that way that they weren't, I'm just saying that was a very,
absolutely.
That was a very feminist sort of thing to say, but.
And that's a common, misconception about the church, right? So they only cater to certain people, sex, and all those other things. That's a common misconception, right? So.
I was a Jehovah's Witness a long time ago.
Sure.
And when I was a Jehovah's Witness, they did only cater to the males and not so much the females. The female role was very small, but the male role was everything. So I can see how some people would view it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see, the funny part is with an exorcism, it is mandatory that the Catholic Church has to go through a certain criterion that, number one, they have to have full medical documentation plus a full psychological documentation. But yet within this movie, they dismissed it as, oh, these two girls are going through puberty. Being as a parent and having the theology degree from hell, is it puberty to have their toes being exposed and ripped asunder with cuts and abrasions across their legs? No, it is not puberty. Hello?
I feel like another red herring, that would be just like another red herring thing.
True.
And the way that they tried to describe it to the church, like,
Well, what did they say according to the...
didn't.
Well, they said at some point in the actual, I don't remember the scripture, but they were basically quoting that the kids summoned something and it would force them to walk in hell with just their bare feet, right? So because they were burnt. So that was the whole shtick.
yeah, I got that part. It was just the explaining to try to approve the exorcism that
Yeah.
they were just like, they were lacking in description. And so then they were just like, oh, let's just say that it's puberty and not mouth, foot, and hand
Disease,
syndrome,
whatever.
disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Open mouth, insert foot disorder.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and the other thing to that, and again, this goes back to Lovecraft's thing, that priest was also, seemed like he was fighting his own demons because he was not allowed to participate and to help these kids.
You have to understand the Western Roman Catholic idea. It is based upon the permission of the bishops.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we're talking about.
Now, the interesting fact of the matter is, if this matter was taken to, say, an Eastern Orthodox church, or say the Oriental Orthodox churches, and there are plenty from the Coptic to the Ethiopian to the Eritrean, etc., or even the Eastern Rite wing of the Catholic Church, an exorcism would start right now without any form of the bishop's permissions.
And that's kind of what we talked about in the car about a little bit.
Because of the fact it is the divine mission of Christ and the apostles, and all the way back from the earliest bishops to the current iteration of priests and bishops, in which we have a community in which I was a part of almost. So
I haven't actually seen this movie. So when these girls, I assume the girls are the ones who...
Yeah, they're the ones that get
yeah,
possessed.
they were the one possessed.
So, spoiler alert, essentially the plot of the movie is these kids...
We're playing with a pendulum.
Yeah, playing with a pendulum and a lit candle, trying to basically talk with the dead.
I feel if we're going to go into this movie, we should start from the beginning and kind of work our way towards it.
Absolutely.
So at the very start of the movie, actually, we cut to the father's past, who worked as a journalist. They were in Haiti. Essentially, he lost his pregnant wife during an earthquake.
The wife went through a special Haiti prayer type thing to protect the baby. And
this was a straight up voodoo blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simply because of the fact it's considered normal in Haiti, if a woman is pregnant, they are brought before the voodoo priest and they are given a blessing, a prenatal blessing. Yes.
Yeah.
It's standard.
But during the earthquake, the wife has a building dropped on her, essentially. Essentially, the doctors give him the choice. It's your baby or your wife.
Yep. Yeah, they couldn't save both because of the complications of
Treatment
the child.
for the mother would endanger the baby. Delivering the baby would leave the mother without treatment. Set a little pin right there, because actually what I thought was a really good twist will come
And
up from
it wasn't exactly an M. Night Shyamalan ding dong twist either.
No, I think it was well written and tastefully done.
Yeah.
I have to agree, simply because voodoo is actually a very lovely tradition which dates back millennia all the way to sub-Saharan Africa, where all of a sudden the gods became almost as men, and this is where voodoo began.
Yep.
See, now me being uneducated with that sort of background, I thought it sketchy as hell, because the way that I saw it was that this woman getting this sort of ritual put on her, I feel like that kind of just put, and the correlation that came with it was her, getting hurt and putting her child in danger. I know, exactly.
Yeah. No, because I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, yeah.
But the earliest experiences of the voodoo faith here in North America was put inside of the Catholic Church. In fact, they used the Catholic saints and various Catholic paraphernalia, such as the crucifix and the statues of Mary the Theotokos, and all that within the religious structure, simply because, like Shinto, everything has a spirit.
Correct. Yes.
Exactly. Now having that being told to me, I'm more aware of the intro to the movie. So that was like really cool. Instead of me just being like, oh, she just cursed herself and her family.
No.
I think that was kind of the idea of the plot, right? They kind of made it sound like that kid was setting her up like, hey, we got, I got something
We
special
have
to
to
sell
demonically
you.
possess this baby. No,
which could
forget
be
it.
seen like if this was about produced at the same time as the original Exorcist, you could definitely see that being the
Yeah,
setup.
absolutely.
Like went through a pagan ritual. Yep, that cursed your baby every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they were just trying to sell her on something, right? Because that's kind of a common misconception of traveling is these kids or whatever wants to sell you something. Yeah, so as we were like basically going through the movie, right? So we don't want to give away the whole entire plot. I do recommend that at least you should see it if you have some kind of like
we're in the
religious
spoiler
background.
section. Let's discuss
We
it.
kind of are, right? So the only like real scary part is a fucking rattlesnake that scared the shit out of
Oh,
us.
please.
Well, it's
After
because
seeing
we were just
what
like
I went
set
through,
up.
come
like,
on.
Wolfman and I have kind of a ritual of, in October, we always go see like kind of what looks like is going to be the best horror movie, right? The trailers of this movie did a really good job of not ruining everything in it because they knew it was a bad movie. And if you're familiar with like cinematography and everything else, right? If you watch a movie or a movie trailer and you pretty much see like comedy is a big issue with it. So they will hit you with like 3 or 4 different really funny parts. That's all that's in the movie. They have to hit you to get the money for the trailer in order to make you go see it, even though you just saw the best parts, because they know the movie sucks. We actually went to a school with a film producer, Arya McConnum. Yeah, so he is the one that actually told me about that.
Oh, wow.
So,
I didn't know
massive
that.
shout out to Surreal Lights in production, all that stuff. That's his company now. So
We should go around and tell each other what like our scariest jump scare was in this movie.
rattlesnake.
Because you said the rattlesnake and
Yeah, it was probably the rattlesnake. But to be fair, you could do a close-up shot of an apple with a pan banging, and it'll probably get me.
That's true. That's true. Although this movie, I will say before we go into that part, this movie did a good job of the cardinal rule of a good scare. You involve children, you involve the music.
This is true.
Yes,
You gotta give them credit.
That is 2 of the best cardinal things in order to scare the shit out of you.
Yep.
You could have probably the best, like worst story possible, but as long as it involves something that's going to make everybody generally more uncomfortable, which is always kids, because parents can adjust to that. Good music and not cheap jump scares.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lovecraft, what was your scare point of the show?
What scare point?
Other than me telling you to shut up because you're going like, no, this isn't right.
I was.
That's bullshit.
I almost did. I was like, okay, no.
He literally was laughing at a voodoo part. Like,
I was like, okay, yeah, this is. I was like, yeah, that's not the proper way to do it.
yes, literally right next to him, just Lovecraft. Shh, shut the fuck up. Like,
This is not how it's done.
Yeah.
It's done in Latin, and it's done without all the synchronous things. Okay.
Yep.
Now, I got to put my 2 cents into this. If you really want a proper exorcism done in the Western Roman Rite, it has to be done in Latin using the Roman Missal dating back to the Middle Ages.
in nomine Patri Filii Spiritus Sancti.
Amen. I will go into the altar of God, even to the God of my joy and gladness. Descendants to me, O God, against the ungodly people, from the deceitful and from the wicked man. This is Psalm 48.
Yeah.
That's the first part, and then you go into Psalm 104. I think. Don't quote me yet, but yet it says, "Build unto me a fortified tower against the evil one." And I'm like laughing at this movie. I'm going like, you idiots, you're not doing it right. Where's the priest? Come on.
We'll describe the exorcism scene and our thoughts on it, because to John's point, they kind of just threw everything in the kitchen sink. At it. Anyone else feel like there were certain scenes in the movie where like the money just kind of turned off for a second?
Well, it's Blumhouse. They are the masters of spending
that's
only
fair.
$10,000 and making it stretch.
That's it.
Oh yeah, well, the Paranormal Activity, their first found footage movie that basically copied off of Blair Witch.
Yeah.
They spent $10,000 to make that whole entire movie. It did gross $10,750,000.
Seriously.
I'm not even kidding. That's how Blumhouse boomed in the horror scene.
Wow.
The first one did an excellent job of giving you that B-roll, right?
Yeah, and it was mostly the atmosphere. Like there wasn't really much going on in that film other than the atmosphere. The atmosphere is what really got me, and it's because of my experiences in the past, which I'm pretty sure we're going to go over later.
Dear Film Studio, if you want a theological advisor, please text 8 bits and dice rolls as soon as possible and get a hold of me. I could do it for free. Anyway.
Everybody
on.
likes free.
Yeah, well, and also what ties into that as well, like I was going to, discuss, we, at least a lot of us have a lot of background in some kind of paranormal activity, right? Or paranormal investigation, whether you're a ghost hunter. And let me be the first one to tell you, there is, as a retired investigator, there is a difference between a ghost hunter and a paranormal investigator.
Yes.
Ghost hunters are just like the shows, right? It's for entertainment reasons only. You're not trying to figure out why certain places are potentially haunted. You're going for a thrill. You're going to find something that you know is not there.
And ultimately, and this is the sad part, not to interdict you, Redemus, you're not helping people, you're only entertaining yourself.
Correct. That's what ghost hunters do.
And that's bad.
Paranormal investigators are just like private investigators, right?
Yes.
We go in with an exact reasons of trying to figure out why the unknown is there, why is it being shown that it's there, why are we being told that it's there.
To quote my predecessor, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, the greatest fear in all of mankind is the unknown.
Correct. And there is a certain point where parapsychology really becomes a thing. And I have a lot of stories, personal experiences from this. So let me go ahead and go into detail a little bit about one of my biggest stories. There's a gentleman that actually died. What did we end up saying? It was like 20 plus years ago. His name was Walter Sartori. Okay. This case almost got me a Nobel Prize in paranormal research and development.
Dude, I want to be you.
Yeah. So very quickly of this story, I used to work as a private investigator as my own company called Greenwood Hauntings On-Site Team, acronym being GHOST, right? So that's how it is. I live in Greenwood, Indiana. Plot twist, right?
Shock.
Yes.
No, Redemus, you'll dock
Where's the red
yourself.
herring?
Yeah. Well,
That explains a lot.
it sure does. Oh, I'm down south. Anyway, no, we're not that. We're actually the ritzy, quote unquote, version of the South of Indiana. But what got me into this is when I was a child, my great grandma, she died in the very early 2000s when I was still, a wee lad. We lived in Indiana. She's lived in Indiana her whole entire life, right? I was very, very, very close with her. Her death was very tragic to me as a kid and all this stuff. At that point, I actually refused to go to funerals because I didn't want to see, my family like that, right? You want to remember people for who you remember them being. Well, plot twist, we moved to Missouri for my dad's work at 3 o'clock on the dot, 3 a.m. in my new house that I lived in. I was living in the basement. I woke up to somebody saying, Reed, wake up. And I'm like, as a child, I wear glasses, if you haven't seen the other videos or not. And they're like, I woke up and I'm thinking like, what's going on? I see a semi-white translucent light. Whatever the apparition at the time continued to say, Reed, wake up. And I'm like, okay. I put my glasses on and sure as shit, I see my great grandma right in front of me, translucent. And I'm like, Grandma, what are you doing here? First off, we're not even in Indiana. You're supposed to be dead. And, this always gets everybody laughing too. She literally goes, Reed, you have to vacuum your room or your mom's going to get mad. And I'm like, what? Like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not a religious person, or at least at the time frame, I wasn't at all. So I was like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, they're going to get mad and like yell at me and stuff.
So your one thought process when you saw your translucent fucking grandmother.
I'm a child at this point, keeping that in mind.
Their minds are between the veil still.
Yeah.
Okay. How old again?
I would have been like between like 10 to 13 at this point.
Okay, 10 and 13?
Yeah. in between there. I can't remember the exact like time frame. I could look it up at some point.
Okay, I run at the fucking drop of a dime when I was 10 or 13 years old, let alone a fucking translucent person that's telling me to clean my room because my mom's going to get mad.
This was a dream too, you know what I mean? Like I thought this was a dream, but it really happened. Like I remember exactly waking up, but also thinking it was a dream when I woke up again.
Okay, I just wanted to say that. Please continue.
Yes, yeah. So getting to the story there. So she repeated herself. She said, you need to vacuum your room or else your mom's going to get mad. And I'm like, okay, I am freaking out. I'm like, okay, my dead great grandma is telling me that I need to vacuum. I'm going to vacuum my fucking room. So I vacuumed my room for a solid like 5 minutes. It's a small room. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Now what? I look behind me and she's gone, completely gone. Just never to see her ever again. And so I thought it was really creepy. I was like adrenaline rushed, slept with the lights on till the sun came up. I asked my mom, I said, did you hear me vacuuming my room at 3 o'clock in the morning? I'm really sorry. She goes, what are you talking about? At that point, I knew that something happened to me that should not have happened. You get very investigative, right? You get very curious about things.
Yep.
I started doing a bunch of research. I was very, very, very into the Brendan Fraser, The Mummy at that point. I loved Egyptology at that point. I thought something happened from like the Book of the Dead, right? Like, cause you're used to that movie. You're like, oh my God, like what happened? Like, I've never read the Book of the Dead. This could be something, right? I do more research. I get bigger into it. Middle school happens. I start buying my own small amounts of equipment, voice recorders, because they were a lot more cheaper then. I did a couple things. I heard some weird little things here and there. And I was like, okay, I can't really figure this out. Moving forward, met my friend Dustin Sochacki at the time. His mom was a very successful medium, and she did a tarot card reading for me and all that stuff. And at the time, I'm like, okay, whatever, don't believe it, blah, blah. Because at the time I was being investigative, right? I wanted to scientifically make sure that this did not actually happen to me.
You were applying the tools of science to explain
Correct.
What is to be there.
Yes, because you're always taught that, okay, a sparking light, that means you need to change the light bulb, right? It's about to pop and all those kind of things. You go into those things. It's 2011. I get my team going up, Reno Hauntings on-site team, and I meet another group because I was hitting the point in study within the 8 years of in a roadblock, right? I'm not finding what I need. So I find this other group called Helping Hands Paranormal at the time. It was Edie and Vincent Kaido and their child. And, they introduced me to it. They taught me different techniques and all those kind of things because Edie also claimed to be a medium at the time.
Right.
We went through a few different cases. We went through the Crump Theater, and that place is known very well of being haunted. I caught very many EVPs from there of people in the actual film room saying, hey, can you come help me? And hearing pops of the film, the film reels and stuff, like in the EVPs, but I didn't hear it while I was in there. They, at that point, ran into some bad luck. I ran into bad luck. And we kind of just semi-parted ways, but not really. We still practiced, doing investigations. Well, I get a call from Edie one time, and she says, hey, I need you to meet me at this park because I need to talk to you about something paranormal. I say, okay. I go talk to her. She says, I am experiencing something from Bradford Woods. Husband and I, we were kind of going through some issues. We were trying to reinvent our relationship. We went to go stay at Draper's Cabin. She said that she went to the outhouse, and when she went to the outhouse, she heard steps coming up the rocks, just like walking toward her. She thought it was her husband. Her husband had actually left to go get wood and supplies and everything else for the night. So she comes busting out of the outhouse saying okay, Vince, that's not funny. Then all of a sudden there's nothing there. They go home. She starts seeing shadows and hearing the wood in her floor creaking. Her child is also, with paranormal mediums and stuff like that, they actually is, and I'm working on a very, very long time book. When you're a child, you are essentially more adept to see things, right? Because the other third eye is still open at this point. You're not calloused from the world of people telling you, no, that doesn't exist. No, that's not right.
The interesting fact about what you have just said, when human beings grow up, we lose the sense of wonder. We lose the sense of awe of what
mystery, curiosity, and those kind of things. They disappear because we get calloused.
Yes, because I call it the majesty of the world, because children believe it or not, see beyond what is called the veil.
Correct. And at that point, that's when I saw my great grandma. When I got older, I was told that no, this isn't real. You get more scientific, you do more research. You were trying to basically debunk why people are seeing these things, or quote unquote seeing these things. So my job is I came in because I actually started studying a little bit of demonology and those kind of things. I was very worried about what was going on. We went back out to Draper's cabin. At that time, I was an ordained cleanser. So using sage, I had holy water coming from the Vatican and all those kind of things. Placing the cardinal directions, St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Yes. Placing the coins that have been blessed and all this stuff. Gave her the smudging and everything. She got up in the middle of the seance, or not necessarily the seance, but like the cleansing, and she just started walking off randomly. So we didn't know exactly what was going on. We just thought maybe she just done with it, right? She comes back and goes, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what are we doing? You were literally, you just got up and like walked away from it. We thought you were just taking a breath or, a breather or whatever." She goes, "No, I don't remember leaving the chair." Well, so we brought out our machines. I had a machine called the Ovulus. If you've ever heard of that machine, basically it is a robotic sound transmitter. It has over 5,000 different English words built into it. It cycles through every single one of those words every 0.2. When something quote unquote comes through, it's able to basically cut it off at the second that it needs to say something in a robotic voice. It's very creepy.
Now, is that similar to like a spirit box?
Yes. Same
Kinda.
thing. Yeah. So the Ovulus and the Spirit Box, they're the same thing. Spirit Box basically is a radio that's been sped up. And so you hear that white noise of the it doesn't say anything, supposedly. The Ovulus is just a micro dictionary that cycles. There's no white noise. It's just pure quiet. And then when you get words like burning, bomb, murder, and those kind of things. And I probably could find the bits of it. Well, moving forward, we went through the night and I did an EVP session inside the Draper's cabin. And I said, "Are you here? What is your name? We feel like you have returned to the forest." Well, I do the research and I go through the EVP and it says Walter. I'm like, okay, who's Walter? So we do our research. We start going through the internet because we've never heard of this person. Well, we found out through just random Google searches, because there is a certain algorithm you can go through to find things in Google. You can get very detailed in your searches. We typed in Walter connection to plus, whatever for Draper's cabin. We found out that there was a gentleman named Walter Sartori that was murdered and buried in Draper's cabin. And so we say, okay, that's creepy. We start reading all the articles about him and all this stuff. We find out who his lawyer is. And it was a guy named Daniel, who's based in Louisville, which is where Walter used to live. And we reached out to him and we said, "Hey, Daniel, this is going to sound really weird," because we get immediately voicemailed. And it's like, "This is going to sound really weird. We're a paranormal investigation group out of Greenwood, Indiana. Do you have a connection to a gentleman named Walter Sartori? If you do, could you give us a call back? If not, totally understand. Here's my phone number, blah,
Ignore
blah."
this message just
Ignore
in
it,
case.
whatever. Not even 2 hours later, we get a phone call. "Hey, this is Daniel out of Louisville law firm. Yes, actually, to answer your very strange question, I actually represented Walter Sartori back in the day. He actually worked on a bomb that was connected to World War II." We're like, okay, that's interesting. Here's all the information that we have connected to this. Can you, point us in the right direction? And he said, "Yes, actually, this is all the stuff." So we hang up. We're like, "Okay, great. Thanks for, all the information or whatever." He's like, "I'm sorry, I don't have any more. This is all I have. I just represented him right before he died, basically." We go back to the forest. "Hey, Walter, this is Redemus and, Helping Hands Paranormal. We kind of know your story. Can you tell us more?" He goes on the Obvious box and he starts saying stuff about like body, cut up, bus, transportation, barrel. We're like, okay, that's real weird. So we go back, we do the research, and we get a hold of DNR at this point, because they're like, obviously it's like, okay, DNR obviously travels all this stuff. They should know something, right? Well, 2 people come back and say, "No, we don't have any type of records of that, blah, blah, blah." One guy comes back and goes, "Hey, are you guys digging into some stuff with Draper's cabin?" "Yeah, actually, I was working at this point. There was a gentleman named Walter that was buried out here. I was there for the dig up with the cops."
Wow.
Creepy as shit, right? Plot thickens. We find out that his maid and her autistic son tried to kill him to take his money. And they failed because they tried to burn him at first. And they weren't able to take care of it. So they cut him up, put him in a barrel, drove him to Indiana, and buried him at Draper's cabin.
What a bitch.
Yeah. With all that information, I actually sent it out, and this is actually why I get so pissed off at that fake podcast, The Black Tapes. There's a scientist that is based on a character out of that podcast. That is a scientist or whatever that is based out of California. Well, he's a real guy. You can still contact him, because if you are able to send in paranormal information and he can't debunk it, you will get paid $10,000 in research fund, like grants and stuff, and Nobel for research and development. Well, we decided, like, okay, I think we've got a good case here. You can't really find these articles unless you really dig for them. Let's send it in. What's the worst that could happen? You know what I mean, right? Well, we send it in. We immediately get a email back from his research field, and they're like, okay, thanks for sending in this stuff. We'll take a little bit of time to go over this. Well, we're reading up reviews on this guy, and a bunch of people are obviously like, oh, this guy's a hack. Oh, he doesn't take his time, blah, 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 or whatever. 3 months later, I get an email from this gentleman that says, Dear Greenwood Hauntings, On-Site Team, and HHPI, thank you so much for sending in your information. I'm sorry that it took us so long. This case actually took us a lot of time to go through. However, there is one piece of equipment that you're using that is too new, and it's considered ITC, which is entertainment use.
Was it the Oculus?
It's the Ovilus, yes.
Oh my god, not the Oculus.
Yeah, so...
That's a scary mirror.
I know.
That is a scary mirror.
True story.
Isn't that funny that that's actually what the PlayStation version and the PC's version is called, the Oculus?
Oh gosh.
Anyway, plot twist. Yes. So that was my story. It literally took somebody 3 months to literally say, okay, you're true, but...
Wow.
Technicality.
So you
Technicality.
literally lost that on a technicality.
I did. I lost it on a technicality. But that was one of the creepiest things I ever ran into.
I believe you, Redimus.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. I still have all the I still have all of it. It's on YouTube. Like, I could probably post a link if everybody is interested in seeing it.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to include some of the Ovilus recordings on this so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about.
If I may. Okay.
Sure.
So everyone has probably a thoughtful, endearing story than what I do with paranormal activity. I don't want to be the last person to say my story and it's really short. So if anyone wants me to
Please tell us
Okay.
a story. That's what this month is for.
So,
Yes.
and this is also a shout out. So the Roomwork Tattoo in Franklin
Very
owned.
popular.
Yes, very popular. Owned by Adam Stoner.
Yes.
Big fan of him. Hope he listens and knows who Lily Pad is. I actually got hired on to do front desk with him. This was before I started, but they were doing a flash tattoo and I was waiting for
For the tattoo?
I was waiting for the tattoo. Sorry, I'm a little drunk.
We don't do that here.
No.
Drinking? What's that?
What is that?
I have
So-
no idea
That
what
goes
that
against
is.
God.
So they have this little back area and I'm just waiting in the back, and Adam took this bet where he couldn't talk all day. He had to wear a Jason mask and couldn't talk all day. While I'm in the back, I see him in his Jason mask and he can't talk to me. But as I tell him why I was in the back, I was just like, oh, I'm just waiting to get my tattoo done. He stops. He plants himself in the scariest of gestures towards this one closed door. And all he does was shake his head, no. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, what's behind there? Turns out I found out that he actually had a salt room. And it was,
Really?
yes. And all I did was I was able to peek through. I wasn't able to open the door because he literally gestured. Like, it was so threatening.
It was
'Cause-
like this. Come.
Yeah, he was like,
Come
don't
hither."
you dare open that door. So I was just, obviously I'm just like, what is behind there? And I see a crack and all I see is this scariest clown doll ever just staring back at me.
Oh,
And
wow.
he has like YouTube videos and podcasts on his own. I wish I knew what his, I think it's Adam Stoner podcast, but he talks about how there's been just paranormal activities in his own shop. And it wasn't because
That's what I've noticed. Every time I would go by that one shop, I would feel something radiate coming from the entire building.
Exactly. It actually got so bad. That's why I think he had to get rid of the salt room. He didn't get rid of it fully. I think he just put it somewhere else, but it was just getting so bad in that particular location that he had to get rid of it. And I think other people were just so curious about it that they wanted to go in and see it without his permission.
So now, is his business out of that building now, or?
No.
Okay.
He still does tattoos and
Right.
stuff at the Roomwork Tattoo Gallery. It's just that I don't know. He just really likes the paranormal, I think, and he just wanted.
love this podcast.
I hope he
absolutely.
does. I hope he hears it. I'm gonna try to tell him if next time I see him. I'm supposed to get tattooed by him in December.
Well, absolutely.
So
Tell him I need to talk to him.
absolutely,
Tell him Jay Lovecraft wants to talk to him.
you got it, J
Well,
Lovecraft.
and absolutely, if you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure to, like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to hit that like bell button so you don't miss any type of notifications from the channel and all that good stuff.
Yes, do those wonderful, weird, and awesome YouTube things.
Yes, and let us know what was your personal experience in the paranormal and those kind of things. What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah. Anyway, that was my story. So now continue on with the more in-depth stories.
Oh yeah. Well, and okay, so let's cycle back actually to Satanos here for a moment.
Oh, yeah.
One of the scariest moments that have actually ever happened to my life, and actually this movie was slightly scary for this exact same reason. Lovecraft, you might be able to recollect one of the scriptures where it talks about God fighting the serpent, right?
This was that. It is Ezekiel, but however, that analogy is written throughout all the annals of Scripture. We look at Genesis, and then we look at Ezekiel, and then we look at Daniel concerning the prophecies from that, from a Protestant point of view. But yet we also see it from also what I would call the proto-evangelion within Genesis itself, when the first coming of Christ, saying that he will bruise your heel, O Satan the serpent, and by doing so, he will bruise his own heel.
With the connection of the serpent, most scariest dream I've ever had. And I still, every once in a while, very, very, very rarely, this does happen. You guys might be able to elaborate on this a little bit, but
Okay.
based on what we saw in the Exorcism, right? The devil likes to reach out and try to tempt you and all those other kind of things. And, again, if you're not really a theological type person, you don't have to listen to this part. However, it is kind of creepy to me. Back when I was working in Franklin, before my Crohn's disease, and I don't know if this has any connection, it could just be me being paranoid about it. I used to have this weird dream where I would be in this random house and I would go upstairs into a bedroom, and for some reason a snake or like a rattlesnake or something, like with obviously very direct head shape, you know what I mean, like on some of those like tattoos that people get or like pictures,
Right.
the snake head is very prominent, right? The snake is always slithering into the room, and there's a part of me in the dream that says this should not be here. And so as I try to say the power of Christ compels you, I can't say it.
Simply because of the fact, and
Like I'm
this may
mouthing
be,
it,
okay.
but
This
Are you
may
scared?
well, I don't know if it's a bit of scareness, because in my mind, in the dream, I am completely sane. I am very prominent. I know I'm there. I know I'm trying to say it. And it starts out as the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you, getting louder, but for some reason it gets quieter and my throat
But here's the issue.
starts to choke.
Here's the issue. I've noticed this with a lot of people who are pretty much inexperienced with that type of ritual, simply because you have to have faith in order to make
And
that
maybe that
work.
was the problem. Maybe that was the problem from the scientific point of view.
simply because of the fact you can recitate the entire Roman ritual of exorcism dating back from the Middle Ages. But if you have no faith in it,
sure. And maybe that was the problem.
It will not work.
Yeah. But I do remember that being one of the scariest moments that I've ever experienced. I woken up from, out of surgery and being on certain medication that makes you feel like certain things are happening to you. But that was one of the scariest moments in my life that I ever ran into. And I've had that dream a few times. It hasn't happened in years. But I was in the connection to the ending of my paranormal investigation.
Now, the funny part was when you say the power of Christ compels you, imagine, if you will, an entire room of men saying this.
Yeah.
Okay. And the funny part was for the entire 24 hours after the exorcism was completed, the whole room got warmer and warmer and warmer.
And I do remember that,
and
yes.
You can always tell if someone is finally relieved of their possession. Either one of two things will happen. Either A, you notice on their face, it was like a release of sorts, as if finally this entire weight of the planet is just weighed off my bones. Or either one of the second part comes in. People can die during an exorcism.
Right. That's been proven.
Yeah. And science has now proven this very simple fact in East Germany. Very real case. During one case, after a possession, the exorcism failed. And now we know what happens if an exorcism does fail. The body dies, but incredibly enough,
subconscious stays.
Well, it's not just that. The body decomposes at an accelerated rate.
Which explains the smells.
Oh, yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, not for them.
Well, yeah, obviously not.
I mean that in the most interesting way.
Yes,
No, but
interesting
that,
fact.
That does make sense. That does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not funny.
No, I mean, it's not funny, but it's like, well, and when you get into certain steep conversations like this, right, it's always good to break a little bit of tension because it does get very, very intense.
I agree. My shoulder muscles are really tensed up right now.
No, I'm not going to mention the names during that case that occurred in East Germany in 19...
Are you talking about where it's based on the movie Exorcist Family Rose?
Yes.
Yeah, I know exactly
that was
what you're
actually
talking about.
what happened.
Yeah, I do remember that hearing. I do remember hearing about that.
Yes.
And I remember hearing the audio.
Yes.
It was very creepy.
Yes, and it was very real. And it was very real. And when the person died, it was 24 hours, was like the entire...
And they were like Gandhi skin and bones.
No, it was 3 years of rigor mortis.
3 years, yeah. Well, actually, so, based on that stuff, this is actually a good segue to, our editor over here.
Hi.
Going to
Adam.
Yeah.
What's up?
What's up, brother?
Man, where you been, man?
I've been listening to everything you guys been saying.
Right.
I'm going to shut up now.
Well, and, this is a good segue because, Adam, you come from a different type of church, or you used to, right? So,
yeah,
what
I was
this aspect for you.
So I have a lot of experiences, but the biggest thing was I was a Satanist for a while. But I didn't see a lot.
A Satanist and a Catholic walking into a bar.
Yeah, well, I'm not a Satanist anymore, but there was a time where I was pagan. So I practiced a lot of witchcraft and things like that. I had a friend who lived in a house in Carmel that she was complaining of a lot of problems going on in that house. And her parents decided to take a trip out. And it was right after I graduated high school, so it was like 2000. And so we go to this house, and me and my brother go, because at the time, we were both practicing witchcraft and stuff like that. He brought his tarot cards with him. We get there. One of the first things that we do is we hang out in the garage. Everybody was smoking at the time because it was the cool thing to do when you're... Yeah, when you're a teenager. I'm not going to tell you what we were smoking, but we were smoking.
There was smoke in the air.
Yeah, there was a lot of smoke. Anyway... So we go back into the garage because the parents didn't want anybody smoking in the garage. So we go back into the garage, and then there's a bunch of chairs just sitting around this table that they had out in the garage where people were drinking like soda and stuff like that. We're just out of high school. So we're sitting there. A few people go into the house, and they walk through the door to get into the main mudroom. And I'm still out there with a couple other people. And at this time, we hear weird like hissing noises come from the backyard. And it was the darkest corner of the backyard that we kept hearing hissing noises. And then we felt something behind us. And as we turned around, one of the chairs decided to spontaneously combust. And so it caught on fire, like right where somebody would be sitting. Yeah, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. It was a crazy experience, but that's not the end of it. So I ended up spending the night there because I was too enthralled by what was going on. I had to find out. Right, yeah, because,
That's not natural.
No, and I'm young too, so I think I'm invincible.
Okay, Adam, I'm going to stop you right there. What spell did you guys use?
I didn't use anything. I came after the fact. So it's funny that you bring that up. Because the people that lived in the house, the woman, the girl that I went to high school with, did something. But she did not admit to it. But you can tell. Because here's the craziest parts.
Continue.
So I'm standing at the top of... They had a basement, right? And so they don't own any cats or anything like that. And so I'm looking down at the basement stairs because I'm hearing hissing coming from the basement. I look down at the bottom of the basement, all I see is feet and the sound of cats. And I told the lady, I said, hey, your cats are getting upset downstairs in the basement. She's like, I don't own cats.
Okay, at this point...
We're going to bless us?
Well, we may have to before we leave. Don't leave this shit in my apartment, please.
No, seriously. Okay, at this point, seriously, because of what you just described... It's a satanic nuclear weapon, we'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
And also to connect, I mean, Lovecraft, you're considered Wiccan, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would classify myself, to be frank with you, as a Catholic witch.
And I understand that. I'm not trying to make anybody upset.
Oh, absolutely. No, but that's what makes this entertaining,
okay,
right?
Good.
So we're really touching into a lot of things here, right?
Well, yeah, because you're a teenager and you look at this stuff and you're
very curious,
extremely curious. And the crazy thing about it all is that you think you're impervious to the forces that are happening there. So you think it's funny. It's not funny because what happened afterwards was not funny. And it didn't happen the same night. It was a few weeks later. We went to this bridge, and it was an abandoned bridge, and not many people went over it anymore because it was falling apart. And it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. Dumb idea.
Every time.
Yeah, so we decided to try to call upon spirits around the bridge. Now, when you call upon spirits, and you just generalize it, any one of them can come. It doesn't matter. You're not actually pointing out one. And the bad thing is, at the time, we did not make the ground protected. We did not protect ourselves.
No protection circles. No
circle. No nothing. No salt. No nothing.
Oh boy.
We were kids. We didn't know what we were doing. Anyway, so this girl gets possessed right in front of us. I don't want to go into too much detail for John. It was hard to describe, but yeah, it was weird. Well, because at first I thought she was playing around, and then the contortions type stuff started happening, and then she started just like screaming. We couldn't get her to stop screaming for like an hour. Like it was straight just screaming for an hour, and I'm glad that we were in the middle of the woods because there was nobody there. But we had to take her home.
Okay, number one, like I said before, I'm going to say this again. If you don't know what you're doing in the spiritual or the occult, get a practicing, experienced operator, a licensed practitioner. Don't do this alone. This is real stuff.
Well, and now I would also like to make the preface here, at 8 Bits and Dice Roll podcast, we are not professionals in this field any longer. We are retired. Keep that in mind. Please do not reach out for, a lot of us coming out to do these things.
We are not your experts.
Correct. These are just personal experiences that we've ran into and those kind of things.
And I don't want anything to do with the demonic ever again.
No, absolutely not.
I'm not even professional. I just had that one story, so no.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the paranormal's around all of us, right?
Yes.
It's a big thing. Whether you believe in it or not, there's something out there at some point that we cannot explain.
You know what, Remus? I just thought of something. And I believe this to be very true. The real world is the spiritual. It's not this. This is what we live through with money, with material objects, with no hope, no answers. The spiritual world, yes, you have a modicum of hope because it is real. We've experienced this. Now, the object lesson for this, for you, dear listener, is this. Whatever hope you have, whatever good you have in your soul, show it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, especially just showing love and compassion to other people, because the world wouldn't be the way that it is now if everybody just did that.
Yeah,
it's really
absolutely.
not that hard.
And even if that's just your main horror, keep that in mind, right? You need to be kind to others because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know someone else's life. I mean, they don't even know what you're going through, right? So everyone needs to share that kindness with each other. Do it because you want to. Don't do it because you're being told to do it, but do it because you want to.
Let me add my further 2 cents in this. If we were to ever hope for a utopia, we see it in the spiritual. Do what you can. Do what you need to do. Do it. Show it. Make this world and its life worth living.
And as a popular Buddhist thought process, and even if you don't practice Buddhism, this goes through a lot of things. Every single one of us is going through pain. It is each one of our responsibilities to make sure that everyone else doesn't suffer.
Yes.
Which kind of goes back to the movie that the depiction was unity, and no matter what background you had, it all ended up being something very similar.
Yeah, because there was multiple religions and
practices
that came together to conquer these two demons.
Weren't there
that
like
were the same.
three or four
different,
Three or four
religious,
different ones?
rites type deal.
I saw voodoo, I saw Protestantism, I finally saw Catholicism. I actually saw, in my humble opinion, amateur belief structures. But yes, 4.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 4 of them.
No, if I was there, it'd be 5. But anyway.
Real fun moment. Here comes the Catholic priest with the steel chair.
And here he comes! Boom! Across the head of the devil!
Yes.
And he pins him 1!
So I think that's a good segue. We've hinted on like a good laugh and all this kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us at the beginning of Spooktober. It's going to be an exciting 3 episodes is what we're planning on so far. There could be more. If you guys want to know more about our paranormal investigations or ghost stories and all those kind of things, leave comments below because they do matter. And make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because it does help the channel. It keeps us moving forward. We've got big plans coming up for this channel. If no one else has anything else they'd like to, add at the end here, I'm just going to go ahead and end this with our typical ending here. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to put that coin in the slot, hit that power button, roll for initiative, and we'll see you next time.
Blessed be.
Bye-bye.